Hey, Extension friends, Birt here, NTAE Key Informant. I hope you're having a great day. I wanted to record this quick video with some insights around how to be adaptable, or if you already consider yourself an adaptable, flexible person, how to really do that at the next level of excellence. I was thinking about this a lot recently on a couple of fronts. I run a marketing agency and consultancy when I'm not supporting Extension, and think a lot about being flexible, right? New clients come and go. Meetings that were scheduled and everything looked like a sure bet. You had all your cards ready, all your documentation put together, and life happens, right? Maybe you get a medical diagnosis, or you have a conflict that you have to reschedule, or a thousand other things can happen. And so adaptability, whether you're an extension professional, a for-profit business owner, or just a general human being living life, adaptability has never been more important. And so I've got a few insights to share. I hope some of these resonate and maybe give you an insight or two to apply in your day-to-day work within Extension, whether you're focused on climate, resilience, disaster preparedness, or other issues. So let's skip ahead. And I love this little salamander. It reminds me of the fact that in nature, ecosystems are immensely adaptable. So my wife and I and our kids have a small farm here in eastern Missouri. We see all manner of wildlife, plants, lots of weeds. And so there's always this competition between our, is the pasture, the grass, and the pasture for our cows. How is that doing relative to the water hemp and, ragweed and other kinds of things that are trying to take over, trying to use, minimally invasive methods, doing a little bit of mowing or other things like that to keep weeds in check. But doggone it, the weeds come back, right? The grass eventually bounces back if we have rain. The quail come back every year to nest, and it's really incredible. And nature changes, right? The livestock mix that we have on our farm changes from time to time. The level of rainfall that we get, there are so many factors, and so nature is designed to be adaptive, and we can design our careers, our work within Extension to be adaptable as well. So let me just share a few thoughts. I've been doing a lot of meditation and mindfulness recently, so if you feel like this is woo-woo, you can skip ahead to the next part. But equanimity is a term I had never heard until recently, but the idea is no matter where I am, what's going on around me, I can be okay with that, right? I'm not immediately rushing to a place of judgment or frustration. Obviously, we always will have emotional reactions to what's going on around us. That's normal and natural. That's okay. And we can sort of find a inner peace, or at least a sense of calm or perspective, when we embrace equanimity. Sort of the idea that I am okay with everything happening around me. Things may not be okay, and I can be okay within whatever's going on. So that's number one. That's something I would encourage you to explore a little bit. How can I become more at one with equanimity? Second, I think it's really important to understand what's at stake. Oftentimes, when we find ourselves in situations where we have to adapt, or we have the choice to either adapt or sort of break under the circumstances, it helps because a lot of times these are situations involving other human beings. And so to really understand what's happening, why maybe adaptation is needed, maybe something was planned this way and now we're having to shift and pivot, really get curious to understand what's at stake, right? What are people explicitly saying out loud? What are they implicitly signaling with body language or other things? Recognizing, look, we can't read people's minds. In fact, there's been some research that suggests that the more well we know someone, the less good we are at understanding what's going on inside their head. So we really have to put things out in the open in a respectful, kind, polite way. But the more we can understand what's at stake, like this came up recently because my wife and I were discussing some travel plans. We have 4 kids, so it's always like juggling, like, do we go on a trip together, like a business trip? Do we separate and my wife stays with the kids and I go on the trip, or vice versa? And it turns out we were actually wanting the same thing, which is time together. And the way we think about that was very different. So my wife loves to be on our farm working here. I love our farm and I love to travel. Like it's one of the things that really lights me up. And so we sort of came to the conclusion that, hey, our perspectives on travel differ. We're in a season of life where our kids are busy with school. We need to be available to them. We have a farm that someone has to manage if we're gone. So maybe there are ways we can adapt so that, for example, one of the decisions we landed on was, hey, it's really not the most ideal situation to be taking a vacation and paired with work travel, because and you end up either working all the time, your spouse is left by themselves, or it's just not ideal. And so we agreed, look, let's try to save up for a nicer getaway, maybe something even international, and we will not pair it with work travel, and we'll save up. And that allows us to spend time now with our family. And when we get the funds saved up to go on this trip, it's going to be really great. We can adapt in each of these circumstances. But again, I would never have known that and sort of thought about my wife's deeper perspective, nor would she have considered mine if we hadn't had the conversation. So start with those sort of getting curious, asking questions. Third, give yourself several options, right? It's always a great idea rather than saying, oh, I've got to just go with the flow and like figure this out. Give yourself several options. Consider the paths you could take to achieve the outcomes you've set out to achieve, even if the process or the methodology is going to be different from what you anticipated at the start. Number 4, recommit to your agency, right? You have choice. You have a say in this matter, right? You're not just being hopefully dragged through the current of the river that's sort of rushing down to the ocean. You have some degree of control. And so to the degree that you have agency, recognize that, own it, recommit to that, and set those appropriate boundaries so that you do have that level of agency. Number 5, recognize that ecosystems change, whether we're talking about work or personal life, time and circumstances and other factors change. What makes sense today, the way you're adapting now, you may need to pivot and adapt in a different direction in 3 months or in the next 30 days. So recognize that the commitments you're making now to be adaptable may evolve over time, and that's okay, right? You're not locking yourself into a corner. You're not, or maybe the expression is painting yourself into a corner or locking yourself into a box. You have more options, and again, circumstances are going to continue to change, and you can adapt accordingly. Number 6, shock yourself. By this, I simply mean like surprise yourself, either by how flexible you're going to be, how you're going to embrace equanimity and allow things to be, and still cling fast to your agency and your autonomy, and to controlling what's within your control, right? And then letting the rest of it, maybe setting that to the side, doing something else that doesn't have you so trapped in the fear of the unknown that you're unable to make progress. And then finally, breathe and reset, right? I mean, there's always oxygen, never hurt it's always good to have lots of oxygen, right? In your brain for your decision making, just space between you and other people just to get perspective and become centered again. And then reset, right? Adaptation is something we're doing every day. Extension professionals do this regularly, and you're good at it, right? And you can become even better. I'm teaching myself this as well. So I hope this is helpful. The call to action today is, what's one thing you can do to be more adaptable in the next 30 days, right? There's a lot you can't control, and I bet there's something you could do to be more adaptable. Maybe something on that list I shared of those 7 actions. Again, they were sort of presented in relatively logical order, and it's also true you could pick one of them and make an investment. Like, in the next 30 days, I'm going to really reflect on what do I have control over and what don't I have control over. And I'm really going to lean into those things I have control over so I can make progress. I can feel great about my role as an extension professional. I don't have to worry so much about everything that's going on in the world. Obviously, I want to be able to feed my family, have the kind of impact I desire for the world. And the reality is sometimes a lot of those things are outside of your control, and so you really just have to focus on what can you do. So send me your answer. I'd love to hear from you. natebirt@extension.org. Have a great day, and I'll see you on the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.